Hi everyone, my name is Alexa and this is my Careers in Adult Development and Aging presentation. So a little bit about me. This is my second time at college. I tried college when I was 18, freshly out of high school, and I really couldn't find my place and figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And it was getting pretty expensive to pay out of pocket. So I decided to take a break to figure out what I wanted to do. I did not know at that time that that break would be 10 years, but it was. And so here I am 10 years later, back at it again, ready to try and figure out what I want to do with my life. This time I'm a little bit more certain of a few things. I know I want to help people. I want a career that changes lives, and I'm hoping that doing research and presentations like this will help me find some clarity. The career I decided to do my presentation on is a social worker. What is a social worker? Well, Merriam-Webster describes it as any of various professional activities or methods concretely concerned with providing social services, and especially with the investigation, treatment, and material aid of the economically, physically, mentally, or socially disadvantaged. There's a few reasons why I really wanted to look into social work. One of the reasons being my friend is actually a social worker. It's something he loves. He speaks so highly of his job. He actually works with younger children instead of adults, but he just is so enamored by his job, and it really does inspire me. Another reason that I really wanted to look into this career is because it's so diverse. Social work isn't just babies and isn't just school age children, but it's adults and it's seniors. It's everybody. Everyone could use a social worker, and a social worker can be for everyone. And I think that's pretty cool and amazing in itself. I actually did do some research on social work before for another class, and mine really evolved around children and what my friend actually did for work. And so it's going to be really nice to see the other end of the spectrum and kind of decide for myself, do I want to be a social worker at all? And if I do I want to focus more on the younger generations, or do I want to focus more on older? And I think this will really kind of show me the way, which I'm really excited about. But the biggest thing is I am really focused on this career because I love that it truly can change lives. And that's exactly what I want to do. And who did I decide to do my research presentation on? Well, let me have him introduce himself. Here's a little bit of our interview.
So I'm Jordan Reyes. I'm 34 years old. I have a master's in social work with a focus in gerontology. I've been in this for about 6 years.
I was able to ask Jordan some of his day-to-day tasks as a social worker, and here's what he had to say.
Yeah, I do quite a bit of things. So I do things like arranging in-home care services, assisting with applications for Medicare/Medicaid, advocating for their rights, making sure that they are spoken for and that they're not being abused or exploited. I do things like supporting the family members, providing resources, education, and advice. We do group and solo therapy for a lot of physical, mental, and spiritual well-beings. We help them through a lot of their emotional things as well.
I was able to ask Jordan why he chose social work and specifically why he chose to work with the older generation. And here's his reasonings as to why.
Honestly, it was a lot about just the people. I like connecting with the older people. I like working with them. making sure that they have the help they need, because a lot of the times families, maybe they don't have their family, or their families just have the patience or the time. They're adults, they have things to do. So it's really good to be able to help them when they don't have help. And then on top of that, just seeing the progress that we can make with them, especially when we're talking about therapy and things like that, just seeing them grow and progress past what they thought they could do is really important.
After learning a bit more about Jordan's day to day as a social worker, I began to wonder more about the aspects of development that he supports. Here's what he had to say about it. And how do you support the development of the individuals that you work for with the activities that you conduct?
So we do mainly, I wouldn't say like maybe three main forms of development. We got the physical, we have cognitive, and then social emotional. We do a lot of, when it comes to physical, there's a lot of therapy and counseling, especially with a lot of the new therapy techniques that are coming out recently. We have a lot of coping skills and emotional regulation when it comes to social, emotional, and cognitive thought patterns. And then we're talking about development. Part of development is preservation. So we make sure we get them in touch with their doctors and get them all their medicines and prescriptions that they need and any other plans that they need to get on so that they can maintain this, maintain this progress that they've achieved.
Jordan was also able to tell me about his favorite parts of being a social worker, the parts that seem more fulfilling to him. Here's what he had to say.
Going back to what I said, just being helpful, being there for these people, seeing them, working with them, overcome their hardships with really only something that the human touch or the human care can do. Building these relationships and seeing clients gain confidence, it's very uplifting.
We saw his favorite parts, but now we're going to see his not so favorite parts. Here's what he found most challenging about his career.
Challenging, I would definitely say working with the families with the families of the people when they just recently lost a loved one, helping them work through the emotional turmoil. The heavy caseload sometimes depending on the client. There's a lot of different paperwork and stuff that goes into it. And honestly, one of the other things that really gets me is not seeing the clients make progress like they should when we're doing everything right and we're working as hard as we can and they're not progressing and they're getting frustrated. It's hard not to let it transfer you.
Jill Quadogno had a lot to say about the grief one goes through as they age in her textbook, Aging in the Life Course, An Introduction to Social Gerontology. And in it, she states, quote, among Americans who are 65 or older, almost half of the women and 1/5 of the men have lost their marital partners, end quote. Following off of this, she talks about the widowhood effect, which is once your partner dies, your chance of dying increases. And the reason she states for that is, quote, married couples have a ready source of emotional support and direct care in case of illness, end quote. Another part of grief that Jill talks about is the death of a parent. Regarding a death of a parent, Jill states, quote, the death of a parent is a potentially distressing turning point for most adults because it severs one of the most enduring and emotionally significant bonds that individuals have over their life course, end quote. So these are just a few bits of grief that one goes through that Jordan helps people with in his career as a social worker. Jordan and I were also able to talk about how he's able to manage the stress of his everyday career, and here's what he had to say. I can see how all that can be very challenging. How do you manage the stress of the career?
Getting help from my colleagues whenever we need it. Communication with them, and then when I'm out of work, just making sure I take time out of work, spending time with my family, making sure I get a good work-life balance. It's taking real time to myself just to make sure that I can de-stress and let these things go.
Social work sure does seem like a lot, but does it pay a lot? Well, I was able to do some research on socialworkdegrees.org where they said, quote, social work salaries range from $41,580 at the 10th percentile to $99,500 at the 90th percentile nationally, end quote. Of course, this is varied on a few things like location, specialization, education, and experience. So, what strengths are needed as a social worker? Here's what Jordan thinks.
You're definitely going to want to, well, first off, one of the golden rules of this is you want to make sure you actually want to help. If you're in this just for the money or for any other reason besides wanting to actually be helpful, it's going to be very difficult for you to want to do the job. But other than that, you'll need communication. You'll definitely need to be, non-judgmental and understanding for these people. Sometimes they just need somebody to listen and not say or do anything. They just need somebody to sit there and just lend an ear. You want to be good at problem solving. You want to have a lot of patience because sometimes it's not going to work out the way you want it to, and you need to just work through that with again the problem solving.
I was able to ask Jordan what advice he had for someone wanting to become a social worker, and here's what he had to say about that. And what advice would you give someone who's considering a job as a social worker? And is there anything else you'd like to share about it?
Going back to my first point from the previous question, just making sure you actually are passionate about wanting to help. That'll take you a very far way. When people see that passion, they will be able. It's discernible. People will be able to see it right away. Another thing when it comes to advice is just be ready for the emotional problems that come with it. It's not the easiest job. And not that it's physically difficult, but it will wear on you mentally. It definitely can wear on you emotionally. And you have to be prepared for the rewards that you can get for getting the job correct, and then the turmoil that you can get from just anything really. It kind of just comes and goes. I would also say gain experience when it comes to this. You want to gain experience with internships or volunteering. That'll help kind of set you up and see what exactly you're looking for when you're coming to this field.
What I found most interesting after my research and my interview with Jordan really is just how different social work is depending on your specialization. Social work for a child versus social work for an older adult are two completely different things. But it makes sense because they do have two completely different needs. It's just very interesting to see how one career and one position and one name can be so much more. So, what are my takeaways after my research and my interview with Jordan? Well, the first one is just how much of a rewarding career it is. It's just amazing how much you really get to influence people and change their lives. The other takeaway I had is just how much more I need to build up my confidence. I think social work is a beautiful job and it's something that I'm so passionate about. And every time I learn any little bit more about it, it just reignites the passion I have. However, I know that I lack a lot of confidence and I know that this job is reliant on it. So it's definitely something for me to work on. Another thing that I need to work on is gaining more experience. I keep being told that internships and getting experience is the way to do it. And I have not looked into any of that. And I need to. If this is something that I'm passionate about, I need to get that confidence to go out there and get some more experience. And that is the end of my presentation. I hope that you enjoyed. Thank you so much for a great semester. And thank you, Jordan, for interviewing with me. I had so much fun and I learned so much. And the passion that you have is just unparalleled. And then I just want to ask anyone who's watching, what was the most interesting part for you? Is there something that Jordan said that resonated with you at all? Because I know he did say some pretty deep and meaningful things, and it's just amazing how you're really able to see how much this position means to him and how determined he is to change lives. And it's amazing. And thank you all so much for your time. And I hope you all have a great summer.